Chapter 308 A Display of Skill. Han Li glanced at the few magic tools next to him, then, he suddenly reached into his storage pouch and pulled out 3 identical small tridents. He gently tossed them out, and they instantly turned into 3 streaks of red light, shooting towards a black-clothed cultivator. The set of flying flame chain tridents were spoils he had plundered from some pitiful unknown soul after the fight with the white spider. Its power was quite good. Furthermore, because it was a set and was easy to control, Han Li had kept it. Han Li then pointed at his magic tools. After the 2 black and 6 gold streaks of light let out a long cry, they all flew off in different directions. At this moment, the frightening power of Han Li's great development technique was truly displayed. He was unexpectedly able to control so many magic tools without the slightest of disorder. Seeing so many top-grade magic tools rushing towards them, the flag-holding cultivators revealed shock. How could they possibly withstand these attacks? After Han Li hastily threw 3 streaks of red light toward a black flag, the cultivator holding it thought to dodge by flying on a magic tool. However, after the black flag tangled with the 3 red streaks of light, it immediately erupted into a ball of black light and broke apart into minuscule pieces. Then the 3 streaks of red light arrived in front of another cultivator without stopping and fiercely struck at his protective barrier. Unfortunately for him, it was only the low-grade barrier of a chi condensation cultivator. How could it possibly block the strikes of 3 top-grade magic tools? It was only able to withstand the strike for a short moment before it ruptured and disappeared without a trace. With despair in the cultivator's eyes, he saw the 3 streaks of red light lightly wind around him, turning him into a huge fireball and then thoroughly reducing him to ash. At this moment, the 2 black and 6 golden streaks of light flew above 2 other cultivators and broke through their defenses with similar ease, chopping them in half. All of a sudden, the other cultivators grew frantic. Naturally, they found the preservation of their own lives far more important than laying down this great formation. The majority of them immediately turned around and flew off. A few cultivators of great courage and of lacking mind proudly released their magic tools to stop Han Li's attack with all their might. It was a pity that Han Li had no intention of tangling with them and completely suppressed them without restraint. More than 10 red, black, and gold streaks of light flew around like a swarm of bees. Any attempt to block these streaks with magic tools was like striking an egg against a stone. They would immediately shatter into pieces and disappear from this world. As for the magic tool wielders, Han Li naturally did not let them go and easily disposed of them. At this moment, apart from the few black-clothed cultivators who had ran off about 1,000 meters away, only the young prince and the masked man who was likely Steward Wang remained, looking on with incredulity. Not the slightest of power was displayed from the Black Wind formation as Han Li had the foresight to destroy it beforehand. Han Li turned his gaze towards the 2, causing them to inwardly shout "not good." At the same time, they put up their guard and emitted faint black light from their bodies. Their figures instantly became concealed within dense dark chi. Humph! What deception! Han Li said with a cold laugh. Although he didn't know what technique these 2 used, it seemed very similar to the large bald man's devilish technique. However, he didn't know why the black light on their body differed from the large man's blood-red light. Could it be the difference in their cultivation level? Han Li pondered with puzzlement. Han Li didn't know that at this time, the 2 were complaining without end. Han Li's cultivation and incisive magic tools far exceeded what the 2 had anticipated. It wasn't that they hadn't seen Foundation Establishment cultivators before, but rather that the might of this Foundation Establishment cultivator, Han Li, was incomparable to the Foundation Establishment altar masters of their own school. Let alone one-on-one, perhaps even 2 or 3 simultaneous altar masters may not prove to be his match. His extremely quick movement technique was almost indiscernible to the naked eye. His ability to control over 10 strange magic tools by himself at the same time. These were all feats that they had never heard of before. Now it seemed that even Sir Blood Servant may not prove to be his opponent even though he had used a secret technique. Although these two were conceited about their strength as chi condensation cultivators, they didn't dare to be so presumptuous as to believe that if the two joined together, they would be able to fight against Han Li. Thus, although they released a secret technique from their body, not only did they not advance, but they also started to carefully retreat slowly. Unlike the two, the four friends of Ming Mountain were absolutely dumbstruck by Han Li's godly display of strength. Although these individuals had known that Han Li's strength was great, they didn't know how powerful his great strength was because they had nothing to refer or compare it to. But now they've seen Han Li take on over 10 cultivators with cultivation similar to their own and kill 5 or 6 of them in an instant. The survivors fled with fear, not daring to turn their head. Such profound cultivation. Such technique. The four friends had been completely won over. Han Li took a deep breath. When he thought to capture the young prince, and Steward Wang at the same time, he suddenly heard a brutal mad roar filled with limitless insane rage coming from the blood-red sphere of light. When the young prince and his companion heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other with pleasant surprise. Han Li's expression grew solemn. No longer able to deal with the two in front of him, he hastily slapped his storage pouch, causing a small exquisite magic tool to appear in his hand. Without the slightest of hesitation, Han Li threw it toward the sphere of blood-red light. Han Li had thrown down a small yellow cup, and in an instant, it became a huge cup more than 15 meters wide. This was the heaven-shrouding cup Han Li acquired from the spoils of the masked moon sect cultivator Xuan Yi. During that time, this magic tool was able to trap that incomparably fierce blood spider. It was clearly difficult to deal with. Dang! This cup accurately landed on the blood-red light sphere and covered it in a short amount of time. The roar could no longer be heard. Seeing Han Li's action, the pair's joy-filled faces turned blank. Could it be that Sir Blood Servant had been so easily detained? Han Li then turned his head over and suddenly gave the two a strange smile before raising his hands. In the blink of an eye, countless fireballs sprang forth from his hands and shot forth like a violent storm. The nearby sky had been dyed fire-red. This scene frightened the pair, and they hastily released defensive disc magic tools in front of them. A continuous stream of deafening explosions sounded out, leaving the young prince stunned. Because there simply were too many fireballs, a few had directly slipped through the barrier and directly hit the young prince, scattering much of the black chi that protected his body. With a battered body, the young prince was frightened and angry. He clearly understood this great power had definitely been brought forth with great amounts of talismans. While waiting for this wave of fireballs to force their way through, he suddenly heard a miserable shriek from his side, causing him to tremble and hastily take a look. He let out a breath of cold air. What he saw left him in complete terror. The thin, shriveled masked man originally by his side was in Han Li's hands, powerless. The black chi protecting his body had completely scattered, and blood poured from his body. Unexpectedly, he only had one arm left. This scene caused the young prince to become apprehensive. A truly unsuppressible fear of Han Li had stemmed in his heart. He couldn't help but curse that blood servant for being so useless. Han Li gave an ice-cold look at the young prince and then ripped off the mask from his captive with no trace of politeness, revealing the face of the prince and Steward Wang. Steward Wang's originally shriveled appearance was now twisted from the pain of losing his arm. Impossible. How did you capture him? Our fiendish chi body protection isn't so easily broken through. The young prince exclaimed this in one breath. He suddenly raised both his hands and fiercely shot over 10 streaks of black light toward Han Li. Han Li's blank expression suddenly had a trace of a sneer. He raised a single hand, summoning a black shield-like object in front of him. In the end, those powerful streaks of black light shooting towards him only resulted in a few muffled sounds. The young prince stared with surprise, discovering that this shield was actually a huge tortoise shell. However, this tortoise shell was black and void of light. It should have been specially refined. Seeing this, the young prince averted his eyes and shrouded his body with black light. He flew like lightning, wanting to escape just like the other cultivators. However, as a target for live capture, how could Han Li let him go that easily? After his figure flashed, Han Li easily caught up to the young prince, appearing right in front of him. He then raised his hand, and a huge azure sword over 9 meters long appeared out of thin air. Without restraint, it chopped directly at the young prince. The young prince saw this and smiled in his heart. The fiendish chi protecting his body corroded all sorts of magic tools. Simply not fearing any injury from the huge sword, he used this opportunity to flee with all his power. With this thought, the young prince's figure shot up in order to sweep past Han Li up above.